everybody, James with Love My Pups, My British Supply. Cryptorchidism. This is all to do with dogs, male dogs that have undescended testicles. So it's not, 3% maybe of male dogs have this problem. Most of the time it is a single undescended testicle. So it's what's called unilateral as opposed to bilateral. Bilateral would be two undescended testicles. So why is this important? Well, because potentially this dog is not going to be a stud dog, and potentially this dog needs to be neutered. So we're going to talk about when this develops, what you can do about it, what the outcome will be. All right. So when puppies are born, their testes are not here. They're not visible. They're not in the scrotum. They're actually up here by the kidneys. And they then travel down what's called the inguinal canal over the next few, maybe a month and a half, so they appear here. And what's going on is well, let's just talk about this diagram. Crappy drawing of a dog, sorry about that. So this is the kidneys right here. So you've got two kidneys up here. They're connected to the bladder. This is where the testes are formed. They go down the inguinal canal to a resting place, hopefully, which is in the scrotum. And then this is the bladder, and you can see that this testicle is plumbed into the bladder, the base of the bladder, so that it can then go out the penile shaft to produce semen. So obviously, if you've got a dog that has no testes at all, you're likely to have a dog that's completely not fertile. If you've got a dog with one testicle, there are some implicit problems with that. We'll talk about that in a second. So when would you expect this to appear? Well, certainly by the time that you have this dog is going to somebody, certainly at the time that you have a vet check, you'd hopefully be able to see two testes that you can. They're not going to be very big. They're going to be the size of, maybe smaller than grapes. I mean, they're quite a bit smaller than grapes. I mean, they're going to be the size of maybe, half a lump of sugar. Not very big at all. But you should be able to see two distinct little sacs back there. And they're not going to be very impressive, but they're going to be there. And they'll get substantially bigger over the next, year of its life. So most dogs, they can perform, well, the AKC says 7 months old to be a stud dog, to be a producer of puppies. I've never seen a dog that's done it at seven months old, but I start around 7 or 8 months old working with my dogs. And typically by 9 or 10 months old, you're getting somewhere with them. And after you get the first kind of shots of a little bit of semen, it's fairly quick that you get some fairly decent volume. But certainly if you look at a dog that's 9 months old versus a dog that's a year and a half old, you'll see quite a bit of difference in the volume of their testes. And that is, that's going to give you an idea about what volume they're going to produce. And so certainly in French Bulldogs, you'd like to see 200 million sperm, of which you'd like to see something like 90% of it is what we call motile. And generally its morphology looks decent, i.e. it doesn't have two tails, broken heads, forked tails, swimming around in circles. We want to see nicely formed sperm that are traveling in one direction and not spinning around, and they don't have, for instance, two tails or even two heads. So that's what we're looking for. So, all right, so we're kind of digressing a little bit here. I'm kind of talking now about actual semen quality, but that's all right. Okay. So we want to see two testes here. We'd like to see it by 8 weeks old. If we don't see it by 8 weeks old, that is the warning bell. Ding, 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 ding. Will this dog ever produce two identical testes? And the answer to this is that you can start probing around on the dog's belly down here, on his belly. You can kind of get up there between his legs, on his belly. And you may be able to feel the other testes. And if that's the case, you can try doing some manipulation to see whether you can get that undescended testes to drop. And if you're successful, then do that every day to get it to the other side so that it's then in the scrotum. So there's a possibility that you could fix this. But your cutoff time is about 6 months. If by 6 months you don't see two testes, you've got a problem. And so what's the problem? Well, the problem is this undescended testes is somewhere up in this tract up here. And that undescended testes, because it's in a warm environment, the reason the testes, by the way, are in scrotums and hang down below the animal is because they've got to be kept cool. And when they're up in the body, they're at body temperature. And typically, those testes are not effective. But worse than that, that undescended testes has a 10 times greater chance of testicular cancer. So you do run the risk that if those testicles have not descended by 6 months, it's time to neuter the dog. Now, Cody had a dog that he'd sold as a puppy, as a stud, and it only had one testes descended, and we noted that. And so we told the customer, look, at 6 months, this has got to be resolved, or we'll work out what you want to do. And he hadn't heard back from the guy, so we called back at 7 months, and at 6 months, he knew that the testes hadn't descended. At 7 months, he called him back, and the guy said, oh, no, testes are dropped, they're fine. So I don't know that this cutoff point has got, if you've got a dog that you absolutely want to make a stud dog out of, then don't just summarily do it at 6 months, specifically if you can palpate a testes somewhere in this region right here. But generally, the consensus is 6 months. And this is a hereditary condition, or at least it certainly appears to have some hereditary linkage. And so for that reason, we wouldn't want to breed this dog anyway. So got to have 2 testes, because if it doesn't, it's going to have poor semen quality. And if it's left in that situation, it has a good chance of developing testicular cancer. None of those things are things that you want. So the normal procedure would be to spay. Now, and also, by the way, if you have an undescended testis and you leave it alone, you can get what's called torsion of the spermicidal connection, where it gets twisted up, and that can cause intense pain to the dog, and it's going to have surgery. So you have this problem that your dog could really get in trouble because this thing gets wrapped around because it's not in the right place. So there are good reasons why the preferred method would be to do a spay. Now, what's a spay going to cost you? Well, more than just a regular spay, because the dog may have to go in here and find out where this testicle is. So you can expect to spend another couple of $100 probably to do a spay on an undescended testicle versus a normal spay. And what's the price on a spay? It's all over the place. I mean, $300 to $1,500. I mean, I think that's kind of the price range. Okay, what else have we got to do here? I think that explains it. So, yeah. So sometimes you see no testicles. That only happens rarely. Most of the time, 3% of animals, you see a single testicle. That one you might be able to save. My success rate, I've only had a few of these, but my success rate, I've had a dog that I got from somebody who's going to be a really nice stud dog, and his testes never descended, and we could actually feel it there, and we worked with him for about a month and a half. And at 7.5 months, we said, we're not doing any more with this, and we sent the dog back. And the people were graceful, and they gave us some money back, because they knew that we bought the dog as a stud dog. But be aware of this. If you're selling a dog as a pet, look, it's a non-issue. Just get the dog spayed and be done with it. But if this is going to be a stud dog, be aware of, you need to check to make sure that there's 2 descended testicles. Because if you go send that dog off, the people are going to have a vet check, and they're not going to be happy with you when they find something that you could have literally found yourself. This is not, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. You can just physically look at the back of the dog and see whether you see a couple of testicles there. And if you do, you're all good to go. All right, I think that's it. Hey, as always, we really appreciate you watching, and have a good one. Bye. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate people who subscribe to me. It helps me, encourage me to do more of these videos. But do remember, disclaimer here, I am not a vet. I'm not a licensed medical professional. I'm purely a person who's been breeding dogs for the last couple of decades. Any information that you got from this video, use at your own risk. There's nothing implied here, and certainly this should not be used as a substitute for advice from your veterinarian or your medical professional. I hope you enjoyed the video. Come back for more of them. Bye.